Looks like we have a similar
Okay.
background here. Look,
Yeah, yeah.
on the walls and looking good, man.
Mine are a little cooler than yours.
Yeah,
Can
I
you see
think
me very
so.
well? I got another. I got another light. Should I put it up quickly?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah,
Because I look pretty dark.
it is pretty dark. Yeah,
That's better, yeah.
much better. Yeah, you don't look so ominous now.
Good.
Right on. How you doing today, man?
Are we already rolling?
Yeah, I figured I'd start
Good. How are
recording
you?
wherever and just let's see how it flows. I'm doing good, man. Yeah. Well, first thing I just want to ask you is a little bit about yourself. I want to know like your background, your history, how you like. I know you're a musician clearly, and I know you did all the music for the film, which is really cool. And I just want to know how you came into filmmaking, and if you want to mention any of your other films, that'd be great too. Because I know we spoke about the last time we seen each other. Some of them were really interesting to me, so I'd love to hear which ones you're working on, which ones you have out, and just in general how you came into that whole realm and field of work.
Okay. Well, I mean, as a child, I used to make films with my grandfather, so I've always kind of been interested in filmmaking. And and then you know, my first job basically was doing camera work for commercials, music videos. I kind of broke in that way. And then you know, got tired obviously of making commercials and not really being helpful in any way to the to our people and the planet or anything.
Right.
And but I learned a lot and made money while I did it. And then so then I just kind of started doing my own films. I moved to California and I started working down there with some directors and cinematographers that taught me a lot. And yeah, I just started making my own films, and they were a lot of time political in nature, and just these short films and documentary style things. And then in 2010, after doing like a long list of really bad B movies like
Mhm.
Hallmark movies and stuff,
Right.
I started I made my own film called Demo Dummies, which was it was essentially about hit to pass racing, but so they race around this track at 80 miles an hour, and the only rule is you have to hit the guy in front of you out of the way to pass him. And it's very violent, really fun to watch, draws huge crowds. But I really wanted to know the thesis of the film was, why did these men crave this much violence?
Right.
And and that question was answered with childhood trauma.
I see.
And
So did
and
you
then
do a
I
lot of
started,
interviewing them, or is that how you figured it out? You interviewed them and you
yeah,
recognized they
yeah,
had those deep-seated traumas that they were trying to express in
yeah.
some way?
And it was an interesting experience because it took a really long time to break through the surface with them.
Right.
So, of any film I've ever made, it was also my first film, so it took a little longer, but it was the longest film it ever took me to make, because breaking the surface with these guys was not easy.
Hmm.
So I really had to gain their trust and push forward and push forward. At the beginning, I remember interviewing one guy, and he's like, "These are very strange questions you're asking me," because I was trying to get into the psychology, right?
Yeah.
And but that was a good experience, great learning experience. And CBC picked that film up, so it also really encouraged me as a filmmaker. I thought, okay, I'm like, there's possibilities here.
Right.
And so they bought the film for me and played it for a couple of years, and it got a worldwide distribution deal. So that was very encouraging as a brand new, for filmmaker. And then I started working with a director out of the United States, and we started making films looking at actual prescription drugs, specifically SSRIs,
Right.
and
You
the
mentioned that one
dangers
to
and
me.
side effects of those. And that kind of showed me what was going on inside of like public health and FDA and CDC, and the incredible corruption, that how badly they're in bed with the pharmaceutical industry, and how there's a revolving door between there and the pharmaceutical industry. If you work
Right.
for the CDC and you take care of, say, Merck, then there's a good job for you at Merck and shares,
Hmm.
and it's financially fantastic for you.
Right.
So so
That
I
what
started
was
I
that one
saw
called?
that was called Letters from Generation RX.
I'd
And
look
I
for
didn't
that because I mentioned
Yeah.
I know you mentioned it the last time we seen each other. You mentioned a couple different films, so I was trying to find the other ones. And that one I never found. I wasn't sure of the title, so I just Googled like prescription drug movie Todd Harris and I couldn't find anything. Letters
Oh,
from
yeah,
what?
okay.
I want to see it.
Generation RX. So
Right.
I directed second unit and was the editor and cinematographer on that. That was directed by a guy named Kevin P. Miller, who
Okay.
introduced me to this whole world essentially, and
Right.
taught me all about the corruption and all this. Through all the interviews we conducted around North America,
Right.
I started to see the corruption in this, and so that kind of led me to do a film called Ayahuasca and the Path of the Shaman,
Mm.
because it was like, okay, well, what's the alternative to
Right.
these SSRIs and all these drugs that are, clearly the side effects are very dangerous, and to the point where, you look at the school shooter, or the shooter who went into like the Aurora Theater in Colorado, and killed all those people. He was on SSRIs.
Right. Yeah.
He was on Pfizer's sertraline, I think it's called.
Okay.
And you can't talk about it in court really, because they will sue you, and they
Right.
have deep, deep pockets. And like in Canada, there was a guy named David Carmichael who strangled his 11-year-old son because he was delusional and thought that his son needed to be in a better place. And I think that was GlaxoSmithKline,
Mm.
and he didn't actually ever go to jail for that. He went to jail like as far as holding, after he phoned 911 on himself.
Right.
Um, but he never actually did jail time after the court case, because I believe even the Crown Attorney was like, this guy was clearly delusional. Now they can't say Paxil. They as soon as they start saying Paxil did this, now they've
Mm.
got a lawsuit with Paxil, right? With GlaxoSmithKline,
Wow.
and so I saw all these inherent dangers based on that system, and I thought, well, what's an alternative to this system? So I
Right.
started looking at plants, and ayahuasca came up, and which is a fantastic plant medicine for
Right.
working with. And again, it took me back to childhood trauma. So all these
Mm.
films were totally connected, and I was just gaining this huge world of knowledge around all of this. And so in I guess 2020, I put out Ayahuasca and the Path of the Shaman, which was
Mhm.
a great experience for me. I actually sat with that medicine, and it really helped me in my own life. And then came, I was working on another film with that director, Kevin P. Miller, but I stopped working on it and started the film Love in the Time of COVID, and
Right.
which looks at the COVID narrative and follows one man's disappearance after going into the movie searches for this guy after he went into quarantine, testing false positive with the PCR for
Mhm.
COVID-19. Never got sick. Finally left his quarantine away from everybody, including his family. Left his quarantine and disappeared. And so that movie is the search for him, but it's also the search for the answers around, is this narrative true, or like what
Mm.
is what they're telling us true? Because I already didn't trust these guys based on everything I'd already learned about them.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And anytime, the basic tenet of journalism is follow the money, and
Yeah.
so who is profiting from all this, right? So Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum,
It's always the same players, it seems.
always the same players. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're crafty bastards. And yeah, I was driven to make that film, and then out of that, one of the chapters was on the vaccine, and I just didn't feel like I scraped the tip of the iceberg with that, and I
Right.
thought, well, now I've got to do a whole film regarding that,
Right.
and sort of just following my heart in filmmaking, and what is driving me, what do I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's where Uninformed Consent came from.
Right. That's amazing, man. And yeah, it's really interesting. Maybe if we have some time towards the end, I'd love to ask you some questions about your other films, because those fascinate me as well. Like the,
Yeah,
the history of pharmaceutical drugs, and especially the psychiatric drugs, is a dark history. And
yeah,
I've
and
often
yeah,
wondered myself, like, is there any real benefit to them? I mean, like, I know they help people short term and they can be impactful in some ways,
and
but
some people do say, oh my God, it's like
saved my life. And
it's night and day for me.
right.
But it's like, that's a small percentage, and the other part is, well, what if you were offered something natural, something that would
Right.
really actually help you, and not just numb the pain, right?
Yeah, because that seems to be
Right.
the theme, right? Like it's just to make you feel good enough to keep going,
Yeah,
whereas the trauma or whatever's causing the issues isn't really addressed.
it's
That's
always
a whole,
trauma.
It's always trauma. Yeah, exactly. Wow. And I guess that's where the whole
Unresolved trauma.
and that's what ayahuasca and other plant medicines have to offer is actually it allows you to really address that trauma. It kind of puts it right in front of your face and says, look at me. I'm not going away. You either deal with me now or you're going to have to deal with me in your everyday life. So yeah, fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and it doesn't even allow you, it kind of forces you.
Yeah, there's not much choice. Like you
Yeah,
can resist it all you want, but it's just going to be more painful in those experiences.
uncomfortable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that like what you said, so your film now is called Uninformed Consent.
Yeah.
And I mean I think most people would probably have a general idea of what that means, but I'd like to hear why you went with that title.
Well, so I made love. I'm sort of on a trilogy here. I think I made love in the time of COVID, and then I thought maybe this one should be called Vaccines in the Time of COVID. That was sort of the
Okay.
working title.
Right.
Not a vaccine, so
True
should I
enough.
call it that? Right. But and then Ted Kuntz from Vaccine Choice Canada said, "What about the death of informed consent or something?" And I was like,
Mm,
"Bam, uninformed consent." I was always a
right.
big fan of Noam Chomsky's manufacturing consent, which taught me a lot about the
Ah,
media, right?
right.
And so I was like, "Oh, that's a nice tie-in."
Yeah.
And and that's essentially what the film is. The bottom line is, all these people injected this technology into their body, but they
Mm,
weren't informed at all. They
yeah.
didn't have the information that they deserved, and they didn't. You had your leaders telling you that it would stop the spread. Well,
Mhm.
Pfizer, the guys who made it, Moderna, they never said that it would stop the spread. It
Right.
was our leaders who said that, right? So my film Love in the Time of COVID, we talked about that, and that was as it was rolling out. Dr. Stephen Malthouse was saying,
Mm,
this has never been proven to stop the spread,
mhm,
and so we were saying that right as it was rolling out, right? Cut
mhm.
to 2 years later now, 2.5 years later, whatever it is, or a year and a half, whatever, and
Mhm.
you've got guys like Bill Gates going, "Oh my God, how could we have known?"
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
well, a little filmmaker making films in his backyard knew. So what the hell? This is ridiculous. What a bunch of liars.
Yeah.
Um, so essentially that is it. The so many people did this and didn't have proper information, and in fact, they changed the meaning of vaccine at the CDC and the
Right.
World Health Organization. Right, the meaning of vaccine was changed so this could actually be called a vaccine. And
Right.
when you tell someone they're taking a vaccine, it comes with it all these. It's a suitcase term. It comes with
Mm,
all these other things that people believe a vaccine does. Right,
right.
and it didn't do any of those things, and they knew it didn't do any of those things. And in fact, we know now from trial whistleblowers that the trials were completely flawed, as they always
Right.
are. I mean, how are these people allowed to test their own drugs that they're going to make billions
Mm,
from, and
mm.
have no legal responsibility for? I
Yeah.
mean, come on. This
Yeah,
is
that's
this system is completely broken, and that's what my
yeah.
next film is going to be about. What
Ooh.
kind of system are you living in, right?
Ooh. Okay, cool.
Right, because
Wow.
people don't even think about that, right? They take it for granted day to day. This is our life. This is our system. I'm going to
Right.
start 1900 when JD Rockefeller hijacked medicine,
Right.
and and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
that that particular story has come up so much for me over the past few years, and it's something that when I watch anything on it or read anything about it, it just becomes evident to me if that this simple fact that the way that Rockefeller changed medicine, if that was known, then the whole system would crumble because it shows how fragile the ostensible truth is surrounding what we know to be his medicine, even the way he
yeah.
suppressed natural medicines and things like that.
And
Yeah,
as he was suppressing it and destroying it, he had a natural medicine doctor on staff at his house. Like his family was treated by
I never
holistic
knew that.
medicine,
I'm not
right?
surprised, but I never knew that.
Because it was about healing.
I've often heard that the Queen uses homeopathy and stuff like that. Wow, that's crazy. Well, that's
Right?
interesting.
Yeah.
I'll really look forward to seeing that. So,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, that's gonna be great.
And that's
When
actually Robert F. Kennedy's group, CHD, after seeing Uninformed Consent and Love in the Time of COVID, they asked me what I needed for a budget, and
wow,
they're helping me create this film.
that's incredible. Yeah, that's what I was so excited when I seen like I follow CHD on Instagram and I seen your
Yeah.
film pop up a couple months ago and I was like, "What? I just met this dude. This is amazing. I was like, that's so great for you, man. So
Oh yeah, it's gone bananas, man. It's all
I've
over the
seen it a
world, and
lot of
almost
places. Yeah,
almost 2 million views now.
it's
It's
excellent.
exciting. Yeah.
What's that like for you? Like, is this the biggest? I guess Love in the Time of COVID did
Oh
pretty well. I seen that floating around in like my circles at least.
well,
But yeah,
people are starting to go back and watch that film now based on Uninformed Consent, which is
right.
fantastic, right?
Yeah,
Because nobody knew me when I put that out. I mean,
right.
I put that film out, and then I would go to rallies in Victoria and hand out flyers. Like
Right.
that was my promotion of that film. I didn't know anybody inside of this movement really that were major players and really involved. So
Right.
thankfully that film got noticed by a few of the right people, and then they helped me out. And one of them was Ted Kuntz at Vaccine Choice Canada
Right.
is and Liz Malthouse are
Oh.
and Amy actually Amy Newhook was the first person that saw it. I said, hey, I made a film, and she was kind of like, oh, isn't that nice, you made a film, okay, great. And then I saw her the next time, she's like, you made a film. I was like, yeah, it's real. And you know so it's amazing how it's taken off, and it's all been grassroots and pretty exciting. But partially I expected it. I knew that they were really strong films. Like I felt very, very excited by the work.
Yeah.
And so I thought, these are the best films I've ever made.
Right.
And I feel like they're going to resonate with people. And the real goal for me was to try to talk to people that were on the other side of the fence, that maybe couldn't see what was going on. Because if you've lived in the system your whole life and you believe in it and you trust your doctors, like, where were the doctors? Where was the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm? Where were they? And it's hard for people to just put all of this together, because it's huge. I mean, it's
It is.
massive.
Shatters your
What
whole world paradigm. Like everything
exactly?
changes. Everything
And
changes.
lots of people don't want that, so
Of
you're
course.
you're never going to get them to see. But there are a lot of people that it resonated with them, and they were on the other side of things. And I think I was gentle enough and open enough, and just trying to ask questions, really, as opposed to tell you what's going on. Say,
Right.
what about this? What about this? What about this? The questions I think people already had. And it's funny, the more I talk to people now, I'm realizing that so many people took the vaccine because they just almost, there was a lot of peer pressure. There was a lot of everybody else is doing it, and there was a lot of you know well, I like traveling, so I'm going to do it. There was a lot of people that did it because they just wanted to watch their kids play hockey, and if they
Right.
didn't get it, they weren't going to be able to watch their children play hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad what the restraints and constrictions and peer pressure that we put on people to inject this technology into their body. I mean, our society is yeah, in a real bad way.
Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes I'm very hopeful a lot of the times because of films like yours and because of things that are coming out in droves now. I feel like the more crazy it gets, the more obvious it becomes that the system is inherently flawed and that it's I think it's bound to collapse. I don't see any other outcome. I can't see us going further into the dark or buying into the World Economic Forum uh agenda. Like I can't see that happening. I know that some will
And not
double
even
down and
flawed.
well, yeah,
I
that's
mean,
doing exactly
rigged.
what
The
it's
system
supposed
is
to do. Yeah,
rigged.
it works
It's
exactly
rigged.
how it's supposed to. So yeah, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Um, so, uh, so I think that film, I think Love in the COVID did, I got a lot of emails from people saying, this film has put my family back together. I showed my parents, and now we're invited for Christmas dinner. And it's
Wow.
like, okay, awesome. That's exactly what it's
Wow.
meant to do. Right.
Wow.
And there are people out there that understand what's going on, but they have no one else around them that understands what's going on. Actually, one of the drivers from my film Demo Dummies, um, Greg Sagmon, he that was his world. He didn't know anybody who saw things the way he saw it. So a film like Love in the Time of COVID and then Uninformed Consent just makes them feel like they're not alone.
Right.
And which is what we saw from the trucker convoy too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All those people that felt, isolated in their own community, their own group of friends, or their own families that could see what was going on. It let those people know, hey, no, you're correct. This is this is what's going on, and you're just awake to it. And then that's the
Right.
other thing, and to your point of, can we go any further into darkness? I feel like the light is being shone into the darkness in such a huge way now,
It
and we're
is.
going to
Yeah.
get so many people to wake up. And I think, the egos of these people at the WF and Bill Gates, and unleashing this vaccine, this technology, not a vaccine, but this technology on the people, might have been one of their fatal
Mm.
downfalls, because it's a lot of people are feeling the fallout inside of their own families now.
Hmm.
And 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 then you're going to go, wait a minute, like, what were we sold here? What were we told?
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
especially if you lose somebody, or even if they're injured, that's gonna change your mind. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing a lot too. Is that people wonder like, how are people still not seeing this? I'm like, well, because this hasn't affected them yet. But once it affects you, you have no real choice. Although that being said, a friend of mine recently told me about someone that he met who got the first injection, had some sort of negative reaction. I can't remember exactly what it was. The second one was even worse. I think it was maybe myocarditis or something to do with the heart. And now the third one, she's developed leukemia. And again, we can't know for sure if all those things are connected, but they happened in sequential order with the injections. And yet she won't speak to her own mother because, or maybe it's the mother won't speak to the daughter. I can't remember the details, but either
Mhm.
or, she won't
Yeah.
speak to a family member because her family member is trying to convince her that it was the shots that did it, and she refuses to see it. So I think, I mean, for a lot of people, it's probably more effective too when it happens to your own child. I think, I mean, the vaccine history in general, like you had that guy who did Vaxxed
Yeah.
in your film, and they were talking about that 15 years ago, and I mean even before that,
Yeah.
but the MMR or something like that was
Well, and
that.
that's the thing, I know, I know people inside of my own family that have been injured. My father has been injured, he collapsed in his kitchen, just dropped in front of his wife,
Right.
and then went to the hospital, and they're like, "Oh my God, you have serious heart issues." He'll never make that connection, right?
Right. Right.
My neighbor, her dad, one of the healthiest guys I know, had a heart attack mowing the lawn. He'll never
Mm,
make that connection, right? They won't even entertain it.
right.
So lots of people are seeing it inside their own life, but they're just not recognizing it, like
Exactly.
what you
Yeah.
said there. Yeah.
For because there's a lot of times there's a lot of time in between. Although I remember hearing some stats. I think it might have been actually Charles Hoff that was saying that the majority of people that he see injured comes in within the first 24 hours or within the first week. And yeah, so it's just
There's a lot of that.
there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on. You just can't make that connection because you hold a certain belief, and when you hold a certain belief, something that conflicts with it will just be shut out. It'll just be rejected from your programming. Essentially,
Yeah.
it's
So
incredible to
that
witness.
which is forcing us to look at all our beliefs, isn't it? Like, oh man,
Exactly.
I can't, everything I look at, and I'm like, yeah, I believe that, but was that true?
I know. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
we're not taught critical thinking, are we, in schools? And
No, definitely not. Yeah, exactly.
so, and that's this great awakening, I think, is that people are starting to question everything,
Right. Yeah,
which is great, fantastic, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question
Why do I
everything
think
you've ever
that?
been taught.
Why do I think that? Is that my thought, or whose thought is that? Who put that there?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. It's so
So it's
powerful.
exciting times.
It is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about like just your experience with all this because you touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear like how your life has changed in a way now making this film. Because clearly, like you said, this is the biggest film that you've ever made, and you're getting a lot of traction with it. So I want to know how that feels for you because I can imagine there's a lot of excitement, but like you're getting more attention now, and there's always this balance between that world. Like how much is too much, and are you feeling all the joy and the experience that comes with such recognition and an appreciation for something you created? Like I'd love to hear you speak on all of that.
Well, absolutely, I am. Especially when it first started, and I was all of a sudden I was having meetings and doing all these podcasts. Something I've never done before in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
people were recognizing the film for what it was and seeing it the way that I saw it, and having the
Mm-hmm.
appreciation for it that I have for it. And I have to say, I feel like creation is coming from creator.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can allow something to move through you, and let it flow through you, and just trust your heart and trust what's coming in, then and that's, you know, something you have to learn, I think, too. But if you can do that, or I had to anyways,
Mhm.
if you can do that, i- it's kind of not even really yours,
Right.
you know. It's like,
Right.
it's so I, you know, I would never feel like, oh my God, look what I created exactly. You know,
Sure. Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my God, look what was created.
Yeah.
And so having that humility around it, I think is super important.
Mhm.
Um, and not exactly taking credit for it,
Mhm.
feeling very fortunate that I got to do that work,
Mhm.
and that I got to have that voice, and that I got, because it was all in me, you know, as it is in many of us,
Mhm.
and that I got to share it, and that I feel like, you know, I'm doing something worthwhile, for my kids and for society. Like, that's where all the joy comes from. And the
Right.
fact that it is touching so many people, there's like, I can't even tell you how much joy is in that.
Mhm.
I hope I can just ride this wave for the rest of my life. You know,
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
doing it, keep doing it, keep doing, you know, keep
Exactly.
helping, keep helping, keep helping.
Yeah.
Um, and it feels like now that people are actually, I'm not, you know, working for free and asking at the end, hey, donate
Right.
to this, you know, the fact that someone signed on and is willing to help me fund a film is great.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the wave just keeps getting bigger. So
Mhm.
uh yeah, that's the prayer, is that it continues. And I'm, yeah, just enjoying all of it, really.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I'm so happy for you, man. And
Yeah,
I think
thanks.
it's because of that humility that you have. Because I mean, I've noticed before somebody would put something out there that speaks truth to power, whether it's a
Mm,
film or just a YouTube video, and then they blow up because
right.
of it, and then they kind of adapt into this preacher in a sense, and then they develop that ego, and then that becomes their downfall because their content suffers. But the fact that you're checking in with yourself to make sure it's not about you, and I think that concept that it comes through you, you know, you allowed it to come through you. And all the greatest artists of all time have that type of mentality, you know, like the Beatles would say that basically, like, the divine creator made their songs, you know. So it's an attitude that I think will sustain you in this and allow you to pull in more and more amazing work because of it.
And
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, that's well said. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And honestly, I credit my experiences with ayahuasca
Mhm.
to understanding humility and understanding the
Right.
ego and understanding, you know, the best place to live is in your heart. So
Yeah.
you know, I just feel like it's been gift after gift after gift. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful, and I try to give thanks every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was curious again as to what, I guess, what was your motivation in terms of how you made this film? Because I've, you know, over the past 2.5 years, you're so solid right now. I'm going to give it a second. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I hope we didn't lose you.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can now. I think my someone was calling me and it was screwing up
Okay.
our
All right, you're back.
communication.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So over the past 2.5 years, you know, I've seen all kinds of videos, articles, films that detail a lot of the stuff that you're sharing in your film, but there is something unique about it. And I'm not sure if I can put my finger on it. I really appreciate the humor in it. Like you show sometimes how
Yeah,
serious it is, and you offer how serious it is. And you're not making fun of it by any means, but then in the next scene, you might deliver something that is a little bit humorous, and it lifts you a little bit, you know. There's because it can be really dark to watch something like this. Well, my friend and I were like, just to give anybody a background for who's listening, I got the chance to see your film about a month before it came out, and because we have some mutual friends and they had a showing at their house, and my friend was like,
yeah,
I don't know if I
yeah.
want to go. Like, I want to support this guy, but I can't watch any more dark stuff about the world. And and then I was like, I get that, man. I feel you. And but he came anyways, and he enjoyed it. And he was one of the ones that was talking to you as well, and he was talking to
Yeah.
you about like the psych drug film you made, because he's got a really crazy history with psych drugs. But anyways, my point
Oh
is,
yeah.
is that I think the element of humor you brought to it, and maybe some other things that I'm not able to name right now, really gives it a unique approach. So I want to know if you like, if was there a conscious intention on your part to make it different in some way in order to get it to make it unique, and if so, what was your your different approach?
Well, I don't think I purposely did a different approach. I think
Hmm.
I'm glad that you understood and felt that humor piece,
Hmm.
that saying laughter is the best medicine, right?
Right. Right.
Um, Throughout my life, humor has got me through my life.
Hmm.
It allowed me to deal with my own childhood trauma at the time.
Right.
And so I've always been a big fan of laughing,
Hmm.
and lightness. And so I think one of my gifts is that I can bring lightness to situations. And
Right.
even when I speak with people about something serious, I like to bring light in too, and
Hmm.
keep it light. We don't have to get weighed down by the heaviness of everything.
Right.
And so that was the effort with the film, is like, let's not get completely weighed down with the heaviness of all this, right? There's still
Hmm.
so much joy here.
Yeah.
There's still much joy in our world, and to be had. And I think honestly that's part of the message of the film. Like enjoy your friends, enjoy
Right.
your life, right? Stand up for
Mhm.
what you believe in,
Yeah.
and know that this is going on, but also there's this place is still a playground.
Hmm.
It's still a place to have laughs and fun.
Right.
And like I sit at my neighbor's fire sometimes on Friday nights, and there's no way in the world they want to talk about this subject, and we just
Hmm.
don't talk about it.
Right.
And I don't need to, if they don't want to hear it, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I just have fun with them. I just
Hmm.
sit with them and chat, and have laughs, and it's very light. I mean, I look forward. I think they're going to watch Uninformed Consent, and so it'll be interesting to see how they come out of that
Right.
situation. But we're still in this beautiful, beautiful creation that we live
Hmm.
inside of, and I think let's keep laughing and enjoying ourselves through this the whole time, right?
Yeah.
We don't
Exactly.
have to drag it down, because I don't think that does anything. And
Yeah.
you think of that goes as far as the power of positive thinking.
Right.
you know that is very powerful. I fully believe in positive thinking, and that it's a very
Hmm.
powerful thing, and
Yeah.
it has huge power inside of our world.
Hmm.
But it's very hard, especially
Right.
in times like this, for people to keep that positivity alive. And that's it, anything worth doing is hard. So positive thinking is not getting down and just being like, no man, it's going to be okay, we're going to win this thing, and we're going to be all right. And you know let's go for a swim in the lake, and
Right.
let's be positive.
Yes.
um and so there was that with the film. There was also, you know the one of my biggest messages, that when I'm forced to get up and give speeches or whatever now, is, let's not be divided. Like,
Mm.
you, if you took the vaccine, I'm not going to, like, that's fine. You
Yeah.
took the vaccine.
Mhm.
It's a bummer, I guess, but it shouldn't divide us.
Right.
And if
Exactly.
you still even believe that what you did was a good idea, I don't agree with that, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna do my best to not let my views divide me from you. You're still my brother on this planet, my sister on this
Exactly.
planet. And if I'm going to live from a place from my heart, and connect, and create the way I want to create, we've got to be together. We've got to stick together, and we've got to love one another. And that means, being tolerant of stuff maybe you don't agree with. But
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
so that's the message inside the film too.
Right.
That last voiceover speaks to that, which is, like, let's just love one another,
Mhm.
even if we don't agree.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and that's the hard part, because people, when I didn't wear a mask, people were me with, how do I how do I stick to that plan of loving this guy who's yelling at me, right?
Yeah.
How do I do that? Well, I can
Right.
tell you I failed a few times.
For sure. Yeah.
I failed. I didn't I
Yeah.
was,
It's a
not able to
challenge.
stay in that heart space. And it was
Yeah.
like, go F yourself.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm striving for. And
Hmm.
that's the message of the film.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, that film, I think that's it. I, it's not a copy of anybody else's film. It's my film, and it comes from me, and it shares my gifts that creator has given me. And
Hmm.
so it's going to be different than any
Yep.
other film, because
Yeah.
it's made by an individual, and I
Hmm.
tried to make it in an individual way. So
Right.
thanks for
Yeah.
noticing.
Yeah, man, it's great. I really loved it. I started watching it again a couple days ago to try to refresh myself on some of the things, and Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I really appreciate that whole perspective, because I think that's what's like, it's kind of like the counter narrative. The narrative that you get from the mainstream media is to be divided. It's not even so much about the vaccine or the virus or whatever. It's just like, let's pit each other, everyone against each other. Like that seems to be the underlying narrative. And so that kind of leads me to this idea that I'd like to ask you about. I'd like to know what your opinion is on, after everything you've learned and all the people you spoke to about this, what your opinion is on what's really happening, I suppose. Because I think it goes beyond just money. You know, I don't know if it's just pharmaceutical companies trying to fill their pockets. I suspect that there's a deeper layer here. And of course, there is that Agenda 2030 and the WEF trying to implement a global system. So maybe you could speak to that. But if you think there's something more to it, like what do you feel like, maybe on a spiritual level, coming from that type of perspective, how do you see what's happening right now on our planet?
Well, I think, you know, greed's always a massive motivator for people,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that greed is more maybe the lower level people, that like with doctors, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, a doctor has huge, you get out of med school, you may have huge debt, but you also have huge potential for earnings. So
Mm-hmm.
banks and people are going to give you all this money. So now you can get that lake house, you know,
Right. Yeah.
and you can get the boat at the lake house. And so now you've got the house and the lake house and the boat at the, and then you've got the two or three nice cars. And if you have a child, maybe you got them a nice car too.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're trapped in a system where you
Mm-hmm.
have to keep that alive. And the more money you get, the faster you can pay that off and be relieved of that debt that's probably always kind of sitting back here.
Right. Right.
And so you've got all these doctors that were just pawns in this game. Because what are they going to do? Say they're going to go the way Stephen Malthus did and stand up to the narrative, and the way Charles Hoff did.
Yeah.
Every doctor, every the drug policy researcher in my film, the neuroscientist, PhD neuroscientist Chris Shaman,
Mm-hmm.
they've all their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
This because they spoke out against this.
Yeah.
So for, I think, people at that level, it's greed, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but as you get higher and higher and higher, when you're up at Bill Gates level, he has all the money, he has all the boats, he has all the cars,
Mm,
right?
right.
What's next? What's next in this hierarchy of wanting more? Well,
Yeah.
now you just want all the power. You want to control the
Mm,
planet. You want to decide how many people live on this planet. What
right.
would serve you best, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they own nothing, then you can completely control them,
Right.
right? They may not be happy, but they'll own nothing. And you've got absolute control. You got bodily control. You can tell them what vaccines to take, and if they won't take it, then you're not going to feed them, right? You're not going to allow them
Mm,
access, right? You're going to
right.
decide everything for them. You're going to take away free will.
Right.
And that's what the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, George Soros, all these guys are about. It's about
Mm-hmm.
eugenics, and it's about, for me to just say it plainly, which I think I can do on your show,
Mm,
it's about eugenics, and it's about control, and it's
mm-hmm.
about control of the planet. And ultimately, that's like, you're wanting to be maybe what you think God is,
Right. Yeah.
right? I mean, these people, I
Mm-hmm.
think they're godless. I don't think, you know, when Klaus Schwab signs off his text to Justin Trudeau, he's saying, "Love you, man." You know, like the way I would with my friends. You know, like the way I would with my,
Uh,
you know,
yeah, love you, bro. Let's do this global
you're
control
not
thing.
really, you're not really telling anyone you love them, because I
Right.
don't think you do, and I
Yeah.
don't think you understand what that is.
Right.
And so, you know, at the same time, in this whole thing of like loving people, I feel bad for those guys, man.
Yeah.
Imagine your whole existence, the small short amount of time you have on this planet, you
Mm-hmm.
know, to learn and to love and to live. You get wrapped up in that,
Yeah.
and you lose complete view of what life can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get lost
Absolutely.
in that. I mean, you know, those guys are all going to be dead in minutes. We
Mm-hmm.
all are. What?
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? That's what you're gonna, man,
Yeah.
what a waste.
Yeah.
And it's sad, and it's all trauma. Again, we're
There
back
you
at
go. It's
trauma.
always
You look
trauma.
at
Yeah.
Trudeau, man, he looks like the most traumatized guy
I
ever.
know.
You
Yeah.
know, ooh, I get to hang out with the World Economic Forum guys. Isn't this
Yeah.
awesome?
They won't even shake his hand.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't even let him come this year because he's too hot an item because of the way he treated Canadians.
Wow.
You
Wow.
know,
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah, he's too much of a, when the trucker convoy happened, I got COVID and I ran away. Can't
Right.
even talk to anybody. Like, I think that was a fatal flaw, fatal mistake of his was
Mm,
to run away like a coward, like a
yeah.
small child. Like, I mean, if you're any kind of leader, you just go and talk to people. Let's have a conversation. What are you guys thinking?
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Mhm.
Anyways, yeah, it's it's the best of times, it's the worst of times.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Exactly. Right.
understand that now.
I know, right? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
always the darkest before the light, you know? It's that's the way I feel. Like it's just the
Yeah.
tension is building because we're moving into something totally different. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
Like the whole
Yeah.
I love that you're making a film about the system because the system is truly what's at the core of it all. It's not
Yeah.
evil billionaires. The system was designed this way. It's been designed this way for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's
Yes.
to keep a certain amount of the populace enslaved so the others can do as they wish without worry.
Yeah.
And then first they did it by just threatening to cut off your head, but then they realized, well, people revolt when you do that. So let's convince them that they want to be slaves. Like that old Aldous Huxley quote. Don't know if you ever
Yeah.
read any Huxley, but he says, like, in the future, people will love their servitude. They'll love that they're a slave. They won't even know that they're a slave because it's such an effective system that they're so numbed down by. I mean, in Brave New World, it was Soma, but we have everything in the world here now. We got our Soma as well in a lot of different ways. Whether it's your
Yeah.
phone or your alcohol or cocaine or whatever, it's just something that keeps you from actually questioning and keeps you going and going to your rat race world and just lather, rinse, repeat kind of thing.
Yeah. Even your addiction to the 5 o'clock news.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole world is designed to be addictive. Everything we do is designed to perpetuate a cycle of some kind, rather than breaking free of it and feeling that infinite flow of love that's always going through you. You know.
Yeah. And
So
that news piece is interesting. I always imagine, like, the aliens looking down, and it's like, oh my God, look at how many people are being controlled by a little box in the middle of their room. How are they letting that happen?
hmm
It's
yeah.
like, that is
Yeah.
beyond simple.
Yeah, I know, right? When you really zoom out and see it, it just seems so obvious and simple. But
Yeah,
when you're
yeah.
in it, it's
It's
such a convincing
ridiculous.
illusion. It's such a
Yeah,
convincing illusion. And yeah, it's so easy to fall into it. It
yeah,
actually takes work in this world to keep yourself out of it. That's why we have like practices and medicines like that, because they kind of reset your mind when you get caught in these ideas. Yeah. Um, One thing I want to ask you as well is, given all the stuff that you learned and all the people that you interviewed, was there something that blew you away?
yeah.
Because in your film, there's a lot of stuff I've learned over the past few years, but there was a couple things I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. So I want to know, in all your experiences, when you're
Yeah.
interviewing someone or learning about something, did you go, holy shit, are you serious? Like, is that actually real? Like, what blew your mind in this process?
And I've been asked that before, and I was thinking about that this morning. And one of the things that really, like, I was like, that's interesting, was when first person I interviewed was Dr. Stephen Malthouse,
Right.
and he started talking about this great reset. And
Mhm.
this was at the beginning of all this.
Right.
And I was like, huh, do I even want to spend time on that? You know,
Right.
because that is pretty crazy, right?
Yeah. Fair
And
enough. Yeah.
but as soon as I investigated it, as soon as I vetted it, like I do with everything, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is like this is a game that's been on for a long time.
Mhm.
And I'm still amazed at how many people don't know about it,
Right.
and the fact that you can't even talk about it in Canadian Parliament. You know,
Right.
can't bring up the World Economic Forum. And meanwhile, Jagmeet Singh, Chrystia Freeland, and
Uh-huh.
Trudeau are all young global leaders of the World
Right.
Economic Forum. Like,
Right.
what the?
Yeah.
And you can't even talk about it, like, or you'll just get, like, what? It's political suicide. Like, what? I mean,
Pretty
somebody did
much.
bring
Yeah.
it up on CPAC in the
I think I've seen that.
in the House when they were talking, and they're like, oh no, oh, your mic must be down. Your mic, no, everybody can hear that person. Okay, well, we'll just move on to the next. It's like, holy cow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so insane to see that stuff. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to sitting down with a guy like Maxime Bernier, who's willing to talk about anything, as far as I can
Right.
see, and who's been in the center of all that, and can speak to that, because I think he'd be very interesting. Um,
Right.
I talked to him the other day, and he said that you know, he would put out tweets when he was in the Conservative Party, and they would and his phone would immediately like blow up, and they'd be like, "What are you doing? You need to put that through our PR campaign so we can say it the way we want it said."
Oh my
And he's
God.
like, "Yeah, that's not the kind of politics I'm interested in." He's like, "I
Right.
just want to put my message out there, and if people believe in it, then they'll come with me, and if they don't believe in it, that's fine."
Right.
Um, yeah,
Wow.
which is wow, isn't that the politics we'd like to see?
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
insane.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that happens on every level, but like
yeah.
I don't know much about Maxine, but I've seen him over the past year or so. But he did seem to be the one that's a little bit more rogue, which I
Oh,
appreciate.
big time.
I don't know a lot of his policies, so I don't know much about him. But yeah, the
And I
fact
don't
that
either, but
he still has a whole campaign behind him too, saying you can't say that, you can't say this. I mean, I'm not totally surprised, but yeah, that's
well,
wild.
that's part of the reason why he left the Conservative Party and started
Mm,
PTC. So, because
okay,
now
right.
he's like, I just speak. I speak. I'm
Ah,
just sharing my ideas. If you like my ideas, come with me. If you don't,
right,
don't bother joining it, because
right.
I'm just always going to be honest with them. And I mean, that could be a good ploy to trick people, because it tricked me. I thought, well, that's a good policy, but
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like he's a genuine guy. So
Right.
it's been a wild ride. I mean, I feel completely politically like, wow, everything, my whole political world blew up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was voting for people that offered social programs and help to the poor, right? Were
Mm-hmm.
they doing it?
Yeah, were they doing? Yeah, that's a good
And what
question.
the hell are they doing now?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so my whole world, and I've had a lot of kind of friends in the U.S. and stuff, liberal friends, kind of pull back and away from me.
Right.
So it's been an interesting ride that way.
Yeah, it seems like there's been like a polar shift. You know, when every so many years the poles of the earth changes or the sun changes, it kind of seems like that. Like the liberals were one way in the 70s and 80s. And then over the course of the 90s and the 2000s, it's just like they switched sides. The ones that were for free speech now
But
are now the conservatives, and used to be the liberals. And
I think this is genius, as far as another way to divide people. You know, you look at you know, the United States, the American politics, which I lived in California for 6 years. You look at
right.
American politics, it's just two wings of the same bird. You
Yeah,
know, it's two
exactly.
wings of the same bird,
Yeah.
and it's a great way to divide people.
Yeah.
And I've been part of that divisiveness based on, you know, the going with one way or the other. And
Yeah.
then you look at this whole thing, they were able to completely, you know, keep people asleep by
Mhm.
using their political affiliation against them, because they weren't willing to break out of that. So
Right.
it's another
Right.
genius method to control people.
Oh yeah. There's
Yeah.
no lack of intelligence there. It's interesting because
No.
so many people that kind of see the corruption of the world, but not to the level at which I'm seeing it, or at least I think I'm seeing it. They'll often say, I
Yeah.
don't think there's no like Dr. Evils. There's no one at the top of this that's controlling. They're just all
Yeah.
bumbling idiots. And I mean, they make a good case for that. You put Joe Biden on a stage, it seems like world leaders have no idea what they're doing, but those people are just there to represent that illusion, because Joe Biden's not pulling any strings. Trudeau's not really truly pulling any strings. And you might even say that's not even Soros or
Yeah.
Schwab. There might be someone behind their ear saying, no,
Uh,
you have to do this now.
that don't care so much about the spotlight, and in fact know
Exactly.
that they can operate much better outside of the spotlight. And for sure,
Exactly.
you're right. You know, Rothschilds,
Right.
and yeah, yeah. I mean, Joe Biden can't even scratch his own balls, and I don't think he's allowed to unless he asks permission, right?
Yeah, very true.
Anyways, I
Yeah.
digress.
Yeah. So I'd like to hear more about that idea of the Great Reset, because, like you said, not many people know about it. So, for anybody who's potentially listening, like most people that probably listen to this are already familiar with it, but how would you
Yeah.
describe what the Great Reset is, and what is the plan exactly?
Well, the plan is just for globalization.
Mm-hmm.
It's they say you will own nothing and be happy.
Right.
I say you will own nothing and be even more of a slave than you are now.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, they can do whatever they want. And that's where, you know, start spending cash, everybody. Start using
Mm-hmm.
cash. I use cash everywhere now,
Mm-hmm.
because if we go to a digital currency, if we
Mm-hmm.
only are using credit cards, and then they can shut it off whenever they want.
Yeah.
If you know, I tried to use my credit card the other day to buy something online, and I couldn't use it. Well, they can do that with everything. You can go to the
Right.
grocery store and try to buy groceries, and you won't be able to feed your family because they've shut off your credit card because they're the guys running all that shit.
Right.
So that's their goal, is just total and ultimate control of you and your life. And they want to
Right.
know where you are. You look at these countries that are, people are lining up to get a chip put into their hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because it's easy, you can just swipe the chip at the vending machine or at the grocery store or to get into the gym.
Right.
Okay, they want to use those chips to see where you're at, like where your body temperature is,
Right.
right? They want to use them to see where, and if somebody's body temperature, it sets off an alarm and you're sick, and now what, we're going to come in and we're going to take you and put you in our own quarantine. Or I mean, the limitless control that these people want is
Mm-hmm.
through the roof. It's
Right.
mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
And sounds like sci-fi what I'm saying right now, but look into it. They're doing this, and they're getting
Yeah.
students to do it in even places that have other great ideas and social programs like Denmark and Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
Denmark just made it illegal for but you can't, if you're under 18, you cannot take the COVID vaccine.
Right.
There's no COVID vaccine
Wow.
available to you in Denmark now,
Okay.
because of how dangerous it is to people
Right.
under 18, right?
Huh.
And how not dangerous COVID is to them.
Yeah.
So, but then you've got like students getting, oh yeah, let's get the chip. Let's have the chip in our hand.
Yeah.
Don't get a chip in your hand. Don't let anybody put anything into your body.
Yeah.
Seriously, people. And so it's just about limitless control. And that's what the world, I mean, you can go on, but the thing is, they're weaponizing everything. Even, the whole green revolution and the
Right.
idea of, saving the planet and the carbon footprint, they're using, like they're trying to use it in Canada right now to wipe out small farmers,
Mm.
right? 30% less fertilizers. Okay. That's what they're going after. So that must be, you would think, if they're going after 30% less of these fertilizers, that's like the biggest problem in Canada right now for a carbon footprint. Well, I
Mhm.
drive an electric vehicle, and my electric vehicle has a bigger carbon footprint than those
Right.
fertilizers. So why are they going after the fertilizers? Does it have something to do with food supply? Does it
Mhm.
have something to do with getting rid of small farmers who are using those fertilizers
Right.
and having only big industry that's owned by the two companies, Vanguard and BlackRock,
Mm.
in charge of your food supply? They
Yeah.
want to control everything on the planet, and that's what the World Economic Forum is about. And
Right.
they put it in these nice cuddly terms like, oh, we're going to save the planet. They
Mhm.
want to get rid of the United States as a superpower,
Right.
right? um
Mhm.
right. And so they're very, 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 very dangerous people, and they're very organized, and they're very rich.
Yeah.
So, I know these people who I've tried to share this with, people in my own life, and they're like, oh, I just don't give these people this kind of credit. Well, give them credit, because
Yeah.
they've been think tanking for centuries,
Yeah.
and they've put brains together. It's not just one person thinking this all up. They've worked hard together and recruiting the brightest minds to help them with these
Right.
plans. And, so the other piece of the puzzle is these people are psychopaths, or
Mm.
maybe they're sociopaths. But they do not care about you and me, and they do not care.
Mhm.
They do not value human life,
Right.
and they don't see anything wrong with killing people. I mean, this
Right.
vaccine, this clot shot, this
Mhm.
technology that they're shooting into people has killed so many people on this planet. They do
Mhm.
not, and including children, and they do not care, but they don't have the same values that you have. So you think everybody's on this planet's the same people, all people care. These people don't have those values. They
Mhm.
are elite. They think that they are above you, and they think you're as meaningless as a dog,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So if people could understand that, then I think they can understand this situation much more. But I think it's very hard for people to understand
Yeah.
um, who these guys are. I mean, it's funny because I've traveled a lot, and I've met people who were in the Israeli army, and they talk about the Palestinians that way. They're like, we were taught to believe that these people were less than dogs, so killing them was
Mm.
no big deal. They're like, now
Right.
that I've stepped out of side of that paradigm, I'm truly sorry for everything I did.
Yeah.
And I can see that process where you could think like that, and
Mhm.
you could think like a eugenicist. And
Exactly.
if you're raised that way, like Bill Gates, his father was a eugenicist. We
Right.
know this,
Yeah.
um so if you're raised that way, what else are you going to believe? Probably that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So these people are dangerous. They need to be stopped. And thank goodness, it's a war of imaginations. And I
Mhm.
am picking up a camera, not a gun.
Right.
And I strongly encourage everybody, just stop doing what you're told. If they tell you to put on a
Mhm.
mask, don't put a mask on, right? If they tell you to come and get their shot, don't go and get their shot. If
Mhm.
you start standing up to these people, everything will change.
Yeah, that's
And it
exactly
will
right.
change politics, it will change everything.
Yeah.
So that's that's what I think. I have to go, so I think I can leave you with that today.
That's beautiful, man. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
Oh,
thank you
thanks.
so much, man. This has been
Thank you.
incredible.
I had a really good time. I'm
I'm
sorry it took
glad.
so long to get on the show, man.
It's okay. You know, I assume you're a very busy man right now, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you took the time at all. Yeah, I guess that is a great way to end it. Um, okay. Yeah, I'll let you
Yeah.
go. It's been great.
Thanks for
Thanks for
everything. And
taking the time.
honestly, we can find time to talk again.
Sure thing. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when your next film comes out, whenever that will be. But
Yeah.
we'll try to do it before then as well.
Yeah, check in, see how the progress is. And
Yeah.
a great show, man. I really enjoyed being here and hanging out with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
likewise. And if you're ever in the Courtney area again sometime soon, if you're visiting Chuck and Erica, then let me know. I'll
I
come by
will
for a
be.
visit. All right. Excellent,
Sounds
man.
great, man.
Thanks, brother.
Okay, thank you.
Until next time.
Okay,
Peace.
until next time.